You're listening to WCAT Radio, your home for authentic Catholic programming.
Lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to True Wealth. I'm Dave Basconi, and here with me is Maria Smith. Good morning, Maria. How are you today?
Good morning, Dave. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Yeah, I can't complain. Good day so far. They're all good. It's just a matter of attitude, I think. So we're just going to put a positive spin on whatever happens. And so that makes it a good day. Hey, Maria, I got something. You probably need to know this. You probably have been missing something in your life, and so I'm going to fill in that void, and it has to do with the horses. Are you okay with that?
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to hear it, yeah.
It appears to me that, believe it or not, we're still in August, latter half of August here, but it appears that the horses are starting to lose their summer coats. And this is how I know. When I take my hand and rub it across their back, it has little short hairs on it, which is their summer coat. And the winter coat actually starts growing in when we're still thinking we got a long ways from winter. And so it'll start to push out the summer coat, and they'll get nice and furry for the winter. So everything's on schedule, but I think most people would think, I can't believe that, a horse would be starting to grow a winter coat. Now, it's not something you can see. It's just something that I see that's being initiated by Mother Nature. And do you know what initiates the coat, whether it's going from winter to summer or summer to winter? Do you know what initiates it?
I would tend to say, could it be the sunlight being less or the temperature?
No, it's the sunlight. It's the photo. What it's called the photo period. The number of hours in that, because temperature is not always a good indicator. Because you can have a warm fall, and then the horses would be fooled into not growing a coat if the temperature were the initiated it. But with the daylight, see, that tends to be more consistent from year to year, the length of the day. And so, Mother Nature says, okay, start the process, whether it's shedding a winter coat or growing a winter coat. So anyhow, we're into that process, and, the longest day was, about 2 months ago. So these little things of nature really do make a big difference in how things operate,
Now, about how long does it take for the horses to grow their winter coat? Is it many weeks or how long?
Oh yeah, it's a gradual thing. Normally, if by early November, I see a pretty good coat, I'm comfortable.
So it's really close to 3 months.
Oh yeah, no, it's a very gradual process because, like I said, Mother Nature's got this thing figured out. So she doesn't cause them to sweat through the warm dog days of summer, but they are getting prepared. And you'll start to see, like I said, a major change. Probably in October, you can really see it, and then by early November, it's there. And hopefully, if we have a cold winter, they maybe develop a little bit more. But and it takes them a good while in the spring to shed their winter coat. I mean, that's what in the horse world, Maria, that's what spring is known as, mud and hair. Okay, the paddock is all muddy. Your fields can be muddy, and a lot of horse hair. So, but anyhow, I didn't mean to tie up so much time. But and this is the thing. No,
that's okay. But actually, with kids, I think you're well aware of it too. Springtime is certainly the time for a lot of mud. I don't know about the hair, but the mud. It's like, oh my goodness, they're coming in the house again. It's mud. It's mud going through the house. In the springtime, that's the most of it. Yeah. And in the wintertime, of course, with the kids, you don't have this. I don't know if you have this with the horses too, but with the kids in the wintertime, it's snow and wetness, dampness. It's snow all over. There's water all over the floor when they come in because of their boots, their mittens, their hats.
Oh yeah. No, it's the same. Matter of fact, I remember reading something that, many generations ago, the season that they had to deal with, the in quotes, the worst season for them was the spring. Because in the wintertime, what they would do is hitch up a sled, and they go from something that had wheels, and if you had a good frozen ground with snow cover and all, you could hitch up a sled and travel that way. And in the summer and fall, the ground was dry enough you could use your buggy or whatever. But it was the spring that supposedly gave the people a lot of issues, because trying to pull through get through the mud and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So,
yeah. Actually, that I mean, even nowadays, I'm remembering when my older children had their cars parked on the grass, and the springtime was the worst time. It's like, keep moving the car around, or hey, you're gonna have to park in the driveway, because it happened. A time or two, it was really hard to get out. Once we had to put a board underneath the wheels because it was in the mud and it was sinking as they were trying to get out.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. We're used to driving on paved roads, so we've kind of forgotten that. But anyone that has to drive down a country road that's dirt, that's not paved, or like you said, park in an area that's soft, you get big ruts. And one of the things you don't want
yes, you do.
Yeah, one of the things you don't want to do with the tractor going across a field is to develop ruts, because believe it or not, those ruts can take forever if you just let them go out on their own. Mother Nature to clean them up, but or you got to go out there and spend time, which most people don't have extra time to be filling in ruts in a field. Plus, if you're mowing, it's just bumpy. So, once again, the closer you are to nature, the more you realize the seasons and the implication that each season brings.
That's a really, really excellent point, and I've thought about that over the years. And actually, last night I thought about it again. This point that I'm going to make about the seasons, about nature, about how much mankind, humanity, really understood their world in many ways so much better than we do now, when we can analyze, dissect, put things under a microscope and know what's going on in the smallest atoms and genes and DNA. In a way, it's really, amazing. It's ironic. In a way, it's just amazing to think that in so many ways, humanity, mankind, men and women know so much less now than they used to decades, centuries, millennia ago. Now, last night we built a fire, and we had our older daughter came and visited, and we were out there with a, at the fire, looking up at the sky, and I saw the star that I'm pretty sure is the planet Venus, the evening star. Yep. And it was very bright. It's very bright. It doesn't twinkle. I mean, that's how you can tell. And it's low on the ground, lower to the horizon. And I remember, and I thought, all these stars, people really used to know exactly what they were. They knew where they would be in the certain part of the sky during a certain part of the year. And all these things that people actually knew and could take a lot of comfort from, because it was stable. Just think, you look at the stars, it's August. It's 10 o'clock at night, what stars are going to be up there on August the 10th, at nighttime. All these things, that we just have become so far removed from nature, from the cycles of nature, the rhythm of the seasons, the rhythm of the sunlight, the stars, everything. And all that was great knowledge, because it actually really helped people to live. And our bodies, we have natural bodies. Human bodies are natural bodies. They're part of nature, part of the cycle, part of the 24-hour cycle, the yearly cycle, all of that. And we've lost a lot of that. And it's just, amazing how I thought about this before, because we do have so much more information. Oh, my goodness gracious. Oh, my goodness. I think probably in 3 hours, the average teenager, maybe the average adult, gets more information than our grandparents or great-great-great-great-grandparents got in a year, in 3 hours.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I think you're right. Matter of fact, as you were describing that, what I think you basically said is we know a lot more about the microscopic world today, and we know far less about the macroscopic world. We're a couple centuries or longer ago, our ancestors knew a lot about the macroscopic world, what was going on around them, and they didn't know too much about the microscopic world because technology had not developed to a point to where it is anywhere close to where it is today. But I have to tell you, I think I've got a leg in both, and I can argue for both sides, but I got to tell you, being close to nature and understanding the little trivial things like we were just talking about, the mud and the horsehair and all that is really a very fulfilling. And I think one of the reasons that it's so tangible. It's mechanical. My background is engineering, and I've had a chance to talk to the other disciplines. Mine is mechanical, but electrical, chemical, civil, and the electrical and the chemical is not so tangible as the mechanical and the civil. You build a bridge, that's mechanical. You build a machine, that's mechanical. But when you're talking about, electrical concepts or even chemical reactions, that's not quite as tangible as you being able to hold something in your hands, take it apart, and things like that. It's the difference between an old wind-up watch, a pocket watch that our parents and grandparents carried around versus these digital things that we carry around. One is just has that touchy-feely, and it's just, I don't know, to me is very satisfying.
Yeah. Actually, this is what the great mystics, the great doctors, the great people of the world, they know how important manual labor that actually brings you to the earth, be it with horses, be it with things that tangible, that you can really touch and form, how important all kinds of manual labor are with plants, with animals, with your hands. I mean, all these things are so important. Man is not just a mind. And unfortunately, nowadays, it does seem that is so highly valued, the intellect. What's really valued for jobs? Are the service jobs, the manual labor valued? No, and they definitely should be. What's really valued? A desk job. That's like, your child has to get a desk job. That means that they've achieved success. They've achieved the peak of what it means to be a human. No, it's not. And it's fine. Intellectual jobs, scholarly jobs, excellent, fine. But the manual labor is so important, which is why so many religious orders, they have the ora et labora. They have the manual labor, and then they have the prayer or the spiritual, the intellectual work.
Yeah, no, good point. Excellent. Matter of fact, you appreciate manual labor when your furnace is not working in January and it's 10 degrees outside. That's when the manual labor, when that guy shows up, that's when he's really appreciated.
Yeah, and what about the food that we eat? Oh, my goodness, there's a lot of people who had to grow that, haul that, sort it out, organize it, pack it, all this stuff, and I have always had a great respect and still do for any and every manual labor. And frankly, I do scholarly work. I translate. I do other stuff, intellectual work. But I really need that manual labor. And I actually enjoy washing dishes, doing some cleaning, doing the laundry. I actually enjoy these bits of manual labor interspersed with my more intellectual labor.
Yeah, well, again, it's hands-on. You can see, you get immediate results when you do the dishes. You got to sink full of dirty dishes, and now you got clean dishes in the drainer there, and same thing. Mucking a stall. You come down, okay, turn the horses out. Okay, stalls need to be mucked, and a few minutes later, it is manual work. And but when the stalls are nice and clean, I got to tell you, it is a really good feeling. It's just, I accomplished something. And then you dump the manure, but it doesn't stop there, because when you need compost, if you go back to the manure that was dumped a year ago, it is just beautiful compost. And I used it for some tomato plants that are now on my deck. And so there's that cycle, Maria. It started with the farmer growing the field where the farmer, mowed and put. I bought the hay from him, and he made hay bales out of it. It was processed by the horse, and then here we are a year later. I'm using it to grow plants that we're now using, at dinner in salad. So it's an amazing process when you're that close to it. And going back to, who's the smart ones of the group, I've always given farmers probably the highest marks. If you're a farmer, you have to know everything about everything, or you're pretty much done, because most farmers are land rich and cash poor. So they not only have to know how to grow crops, take care of animals, but also fix equipment, because they don't have money to just keep replacing it. If you've ever talked to a farmer that is land rich and cash poor, you'll realize just how smart these people are, despite the fact some of them may not have even graduated high school. But without them, we'd all be done.
Absolutely, absolutely. A couple of things that I was thinking as you were speaking were that it's when you do something that's manual instead of something that's intellectual, you're actually taking a break. It's good, like you said, you feel accomplished, you see the clean stall, you see the clean dishes, but it's also you're taking a break. You're giving your mind a rest. And that's another problem, too, in our modern day, when there's so much affecting our minds, so much information coming in and out, so much that we're using our minds for, and not enough manual stuff. We get overload. And we get brain overload, and that's not good. That's where you get a lot of mental illness or emotional illness or, burnout. You get all this stuff going on because human beings have a mind, a body, a soul. We need to exercise and use all of that, what we have been given. We cannot focus only on the intellect, and really the one that's really going out is the spiritual, the intellect. And then people do have, they go out to exercise. I think we've talked about this before. You go out and exercise for half an hour, 45 minutes a day, several times a week. But really the best kind is really when you incorporate it into your day, like cleaning out a stall or doing the dishes or doing some cleaning or gardening or whatever, or taking a walk or taking a run or whatever in nature. That's really the best kind of physical activity. It doesn't have to be anything frenetic, which is what, our intellects are used in a frenetic way. Hurry, efficiency, get the work done, more productivity, more money, and then we get the exercise. Oh, you have to have this cardio workout. You have to really get, your pulse up to this rate, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. There's very little calm that we really, and of course then you do have some people who we need a break from all that, and then you have meditation experts coming up, with even apps and things like that. But anyway, God made our bodies to go into a rhythm. We need to use our minds, our bodies, and above all, our spiritual dimension. We need to really utilize all three. The spiritual being the highest, higher than the intellect. The intellect being higher than the emotions and the body. But still, all of them have a place. And when we neglect one or more of the human dimensions, we lose. We really, it's to our detriment.
Yeah. No, those are excellent points. And as you were speaking, I was thinking some of the points you were making. you in my mind, described the so-called farmer that I was referring to earlier, because there is that balance. And we did talk about exercise on a past show. I think it may have been last week or the week before, that a farmer stays in good shape because of the manual work that has to be done, all the chores. You're probably not seeing a farmer go to the gym after he drags himself in, when the sun goes down. He's probably ready to go to bed and get up at sunrise and start all over. But the farmer has that. It comes naturally on a farm, especially when you have to do everything. Obviously the physical, but when you have a problem with, about deciding when to plant, or you've got something going on in the field, you're thinking that through. So there's the exercising the mind. If you have a sick animal, again, you've got to figure that one out. If you have a piece of equipment that goes down, you need to work through that. So you've got to be a mechanic. So again, using the mind. And I also think that farmers in general, because of their ties to nature, tend to be spiritual. I would even say religious, because we have made a distinction between being religious and being spiritual. But I would say a lot of farmers tend to be religious. So there's that mind, body, soul connection. And it's as old as man himself. We've either been, we've been tending animals since day one. And the Bible talks about it, the sheep and the herd, the shepherd and all of that is used in the Bible. And I think it's used because it has that balance and people can relate to it. But unfortunately, the technology has allowed us to get so far removed from it that things don't make much sense like they used to.
Yeah, exactly. When you were talking about the mind, body, soul connection and farming and all that, nowadays I think that many young people, there's like a craze. It's become so popular, hiking, camping, and I think that's where the young people especially get that connection with the mind, the body, and the soul. Because for them, hiking, when the immensity, the beauty of nature really connects them to something over and above the mundane world.
Yeah, and let's face it, not everybody can be a farmer these days or is needed to be a farmer. There's all these other things. So if you're born in a city or a suburb, and that's where you grow up, turning to these other activities that do bring you closer to nature is a good thing. I mean, it's another way to get there. I know when we were with doing the camping with the Scouts, both my boys were in the Boy Scouts. It was good. We all sat around the campfire. This was before all the technology, and so we had the fathers all had a great discussion. We all laughed about stories that we told, and the kids were out doing their thing, and then there were scheduled activities. So it was a really good, good thing, and a lot of bonding. So I can see the draw that people would have to camping, to hiking, and to nature. Despite the fact that you might live in an apartment on the 20th floor in a city. So that's all good.
I think, too, with farming nowadays, unfortunately, the best kind of farm would be a family farm. It could even be a large family farm. But nowadays, farming has become such an industry. There are very rich farmers with tons and tons of land. They use machinery. So that's really taken away from, again, it's really what we were saying before, too, what you were saying, the microscopic and the macroscopic, the local, the distant, the local community, the overall, distant community to something the government that's far away. Which is, of course, the Catholic principle of subsidiarity. When you really want everything to be at the smallest, most local level.
Yes.
And
exactly.
And with farming, it's really difficult now for anybody to really do it on a smaller scale, and that is really where you get more of the wisdom, more of the connection with nature. I mean, if you're having machinery do all your work and you're just telling people what to do from your office, it really isn't. You're farming on this huge scale. You're really not part of nature. You're really part of some kind of machinery.
Well, it's become an industry. You're now.
Yes.
It's a factory. It's a fact. Matter of fact, you just touched on something I've been thinking about for a while, and this is definitely for another show at some point. But are you familiar with the concept of entropy? Are you familiar with
again?
the term entropy?
Can you spell that? I'm not sure I know the word.
ENTROPY, I think of ENTRO. It's
okay.
Entropy, yeah, PY.
No, I don't even know the word.
Well, most people aren't. It's not something that you come in contact with in normal life. I had it in my engineering courses, but strangely enough, Maria, I was making a connection between entropy, which is, I'll give you a quick definition, it's a measure of disorder. Okay, disorder. I'm not talking about disorder like, people throwing rocks through buildings. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about going from something that's in an organized state to a less organized state, going from order to disorder. And believe it or not, the thought that crossed my mind is these big farms versus the family farm. So at some point, maybe we could talk about that. And what my thinking was doing was bringing into play this concept of entropy, which in some circles is an engineering term, but and how it's relating to what's going on with these huge mega farms. And I was just starting to develop my thoughts on it, but it seems like maybe this is something we could talk about just based on what you were saying just prior. And so we'll put that on the back burner for now, but it all ties in for sure.
I mean, if you want to just say a few more things about it, I'd love to hear it.
Well, I need to develop my thoughts a little bit better on it. I'll keep you in suspense, but it really does, I think, in a nice way tie in to our discussion today, which started out with horsehair, which started out with me rubbing my hand across the back of my horse and see where it's taken us. But that's good. That seems to be the natural way things evolve on this show. But but it's, again, when you start to look at it from, let's use the Bible or the way the ancients looked at it, even before. Go back to Aristotle and Socrates and Plato and those folks. We just kind of made a mess out of this thing. And if maybe it's time to go on to a topic that we talked about just before the show, because maybe it's a nice segue into that. Unless you have something else you would like to talk about on this, on the horsehair in the farm.
No, go right ahead.
Okay. Well, the thing that struck me since our last show was, I don't know, just kind of popped into my head. It was this thing, Signs of the Times. And back when I was a teenager, late teens, back in the late 60s, I was in a CYO, Catholic Youth Organization, or CCD, and it was in a small parish, very small. The priest taught the classes, and one of the books that we were using had the title on it, the title of the book that was Signs of the Times. And he asked me about what does that mean to me. And back in the late 60s, there was the turmoil of the Vietnam War. Civil rights was still a pretty intense issue. and there were a lot of signs in the streets in protest. Now, today, if you look at the news, today there's a lot of signs in the streets in protest. Also, this happens to be the week of the DNC, the Democrat National Convention. And here's my point. It really we should be asking, what's causing the signs of the time? And when I started thinking about that, it got me thinking about something else that I had heard a while back, and I always thought it was a very good question. And that question is, can man rule himself? Now, some people will say yes if the right people are in charge. Some people will say no. Now, I say maybe. The maybe depends on not so much the right people being in charge, but the right authority being in charge. And that authority, of course, is God. And the right people, then, are the ones that recognize that. So, if that model is not used where God is the authority, then I say no, man cannot rule himself. And for proof, just look at the signs of the times. When you have too many groups, different groups, with their own idea of what's right, what's wrong, what's moral, you get this mess that we're in today. With God as the single authority, if everyone subscribes to that, then there may be differences, but I would think they would be minor, that could be worked out. But now things are so polarized because everybody thinks that they're in charge, or their group or their cause is in charge, that we've got a very sad situation. And again, I would say no, under those conditions, man cannot rule himself, because we're headed more toward destruction than, living in a society that we all feel safe and comfortable and positive about.
Yeah. Can man rule himself? Well, man cannot rule mankind himself, but man can and must rule himself, his emotions, his impulses, his inclinations. Man must have self-rule. He must rule over his behavior, over his thoughts. He must rule himself. He must have, which is actually part of our baptismal vocation, is the kingly self-rule, the queenly self-rule. We can't rule anybody else unless we can rule ourselves. We cannot help anybody else unless we can help ourselves. And God has given each and every human being free will to choose, to freely choose to rule ourselves, to rule the way we act, the way we think, to direct ourselves to the good, and to freely avoid the evil.
Yeah, and that's a good observation that you made about man should rule himself. But the statement, can man rule himself, implied, when I heard it, it implied, can man rule mankind? In other words, can we rule ourselves as a society as opposed to a individual? But so yes, by us ruling ourselves in a way, and again, it gets back to the same concept. What authority are you ruling yourself by? Your own authority, or from God? That comes to us through the teachings of Jesus Christ. That again comes to us through the teachings of the Church, the Catholic Church. So, if we rule ourselves individually and take that to the community, to the culture, to society, then we then end up being able to rule ourselves as a society, as a whole. So it starts with the individual, and it transfers over to the community. But take the opposite. If each individual cannot rule themselves because they lack authority by which they make decisions, they're going to be taking all kinds of different opinions to themselves. They're going to be taking self-centered opinions to the community, and therefore you can't have an ordered society if everybody is playing by different rules. So it doesn't matter whether you're looking at mankind or man as an individual. You still have to have the God authority for things to work out.
Yeah, I agree absolutely 100% that man cannot rule mankind without being subject to the higher authority, the highest authority of God. And actually, I'm going to have to probably give that a little bit more thought, but I don't think I need to know, because man cannot even really rule himself without God, because our human nature is pretty strong. Our inclination to want what we want, when we want, how we want, to think that our way is the best, to think that we know the best, is very powerful. It really is. So even this kingly self-rule, this queenly self-rule that we are commanded to have, we're commanded to rise above our baser human nature, to be in charge of our emotions and our behavior. And we can't even really do that without God.
Yeah, could you expand upon, that's, believe it or not, that's kind of the first time I've heard of this kingly and queenly self-rule. It's kind of interesting, but could you expand upon that?
So interesting, yes. When I first heard it a few years ago, I was like, oh my goodness. It was in one of my courses, and now I might be getting the words wrong because I don't remember the exact way to phrase it, but with baptism, we get 3 different functions. Each and every person at baptism gets these 3 different functions: the kingly, the priestly, and the prophetic. The kingly means to rule. Human beings were created to rule over the whole world, the whole universe. Adam was given the whole of paradise to rule, to tend to the garden, to be God's caretaker, to be God's number one in charge of creation, to have dominion over everything, over all the animals, over all nature. And that is the kingly rule. But the primary thing is to have rule over yourself, so that you can rule others. You can rule other human beings, the man to rule his family, the husband and wife to rule their children in the appropriate way, and to rule all of creation, nature. I mean, you have people who really care about the environment, really care about nature, and that's good. We're the stewards of this world. We are called to be good stewards. We're called to take care of nature and animals and each other. So that's the kingly one, and that's, when I heard that, I go, oh my goodness, not only should we, it's not just a good idea to really be in charge of ourselves, to really have dominion over our nature, over our emotions. And this brings so much into the picture, because many people don't know how to rule themselves. This is where you get the disorder. People are letting their impulses, their feelings, their wrong ideas and notions, their wrong ideologies rule them. They're not ruling. They're not judging appropriately.
Yeah, it's their appetites that are ruling them and not their intellect.
Yes. Not their intellect, and certainly not their spirituality.
Right. No, it's the physical appetite.
Exactly.
Whether it's food,
because
drink,
we don't now a king who gives into all his whims and has whatever he wants. The picture of that poor soul, King Henry VIII, comes to mind, where he's like women and food and love, pleasure galore. That's not a king who has kingly self-rule.
Yeah. So, okay, now that's interesting. And then you said priestly, because I have.
Yeah, and I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Continue, please.
No, go ahead. No, I was saying.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I really can't describe those functions very well right now. I did know them at a time, and I'm sure I could look them up easily enough for another show. But those were the three. The prophetic, I really can't explain that properly right now, nor the priestly. But you have heard that each person is part of the priesthood, each and every baptized person. But only ordained priests have the ministerial priesthood.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I have read that, and but not the kingly, but I had read that we're all called to be to the priesthood, but it's not the same as an ordained priest. That's why. Yeah, Maria. Once again, that can be something else we talk about on another show, because I think that could literally fill up another show. Just like the entropy thing. But I forget exactly where we left off. I asked you to explain those a little bit. And but what were we talking about just before that?
You had come out with 10-man rule himself.
Yeah. Well, and I gave you my thoughts regarding that. Unless we recognize the proper authority. I think I remember in that phrase really implies, can man rule himself as a culture? And once again, it starts with the individual, because if we don't have people that understand how things should work and by what authority decisions should be made, or what light, how things should be decided upon, then it's just a free-for-all, and that becomes chaos. And unfortunately, I think that, as the numbers indicate, fewer people are saying they're religious. The people that were religious are dropping out. The church attendance is down. And that just all points to this going in a direction that is not going to be, that's not going to bear good fruit for our society. And again, the signs of the times tend to be the proof, or they say a lot about what's going on in everybody's heart as an individual. Yeah.
It does seem, right now it seems like the times are extremely difficult, extremely disordered, but yet there is such a hope within me that, because I really do trust that God has everything under control, and that God is going to bring an immense good, such great good, because the evil that's really coming up, the evil that's bubbling up, the evil that's coming through everything is just so great. The evil, the insanity that is all around. It's just, you turn on the news, oh my goodness gracious, it's really hard to believe that there are human beings who really are acting in certain ways. They're really acting like beasts, One thing I wanted to say, the King Nebuchadnezzar? I just read a little bit more about his story. I'm reading a book, and it talks a little bit more about King Nebuchadnezzar. Evidently, he had so much, but he refused to submit to the higher authority. And God turned him into a beast. We can just apply that, why we're seeing so many people who are acting like beasts nowadays, who have lost their reason, their human reasoning abilities.
Well, that's it. Like I said, once everybody starts to act on their own, everybody brings their own opinion to the marketplace, to the public square. It can't be anything but chaos. And then at that point, force wins out. The strong, the brutal, the beast, if you will win, at least temporarily, because sooner or later, even within that group, there's going to be conflict. And the whole thing just blows up. And until there's some sane voice, some sane reasoning that can enter into this world that really turns everything around, and it has to be a absolute abandoning of the chaos and accepting the new order. And that's what I think Christ calls us to in our own lives, is to abandon the self and take on him. And when we do that, we get rid of the chaos. We then become holy, ordered, and then when we all can do that, that just, like I said, transfers right to our society, and we have a much better, healthy, happy society. It's not perfect. It can't be on this earth, but it will be so much better than what we're dealing with today.
Yeah. To put on Christ, to take up our cross every day and follow him. That's exactly what we're called to do. And if we don't do that, we don't become freer. We become more beast-like. If we do put on Christ, do pick up our cross and follow him, not only do we not lose ourselves, we become freer and we become more ourselves.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's pretty simple when you think about it, think it through. But the hard part is always the doing. There's two components: strategy and tactics. Strategy is figuring out what to do. The tactics is actually getting it done. I think in the military, I could be wrong about this, but they always say that the strategy is 10-20% and the tactics is the 80 to 90%. So, you got to figure it out first. That's important, but then you got to get it done. So unless you're committed, ain't going to happen. So, yeah. Well, I've kind of given my thoughts on the signs of the times, and I think we kind of came full circle in a lot of ways. You can make the connection with that to the beginning of the show, and we just kind of, things kind of evolved as they normally do. But do you have any additional thoughts that you would like to, talk about?
No, I think that we've covered a lot today, and we've come to close to another hour of a show, so I think that this would be a good time to end. Okay.
Well, since horses started the show, I do like to give one piece of advice that it doesn't happen often, but when they get talked about, and that advice is always keep the horse between you and the ground. If you're riding, that's an important piece of advice. So now let's close with a prayer. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Amen. Take care, Maria. Have a great week.
You too, Dave. Thank you. Bye-bye. God bless everybody.
Hello, God's beloved. I'm Annabelle Mosley, author, professor of theology, and host of Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. I invite you to listen in and find inspiration along this sacred journey we're traveling together to make our lives a masterpiece and, with God's grace, become saints. Join me, Annabelle Mosley, for Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. God bless you. Remember, you're never alone. God is always with you.
To a production of WCAT Radio. Please join us in our mission of evangelization. And don't forget, love lifts up where knowledge takes flight.